There comes a time when we play through a video game and are reminded of just how far our medium has come since the early days of our industry. But then eventually you find something so high in quality and so groundbreaking for its time that simply discussing it briefly just won't be enough to do it justice. This happened in the 90s due to one legendary game director that helped create something iconic and change the games industry forever. This is a look at that series. This is my Metal Gear Solid Epic. Hey there everyone, my name is Jakejames Lugo and welcome to my Metal Gear Solid Epic series. This is my look at the entire Metal Gear Solid franchise, the games that brought together phenomenal storytelling and engaging gameplay which stuck with so many people throughout the years. Now a few ground rules here. We're only going to look at the mainline entries of the series, the ones with the most significance. This means that we won't be getting into any of the crazy spin-offs or random entries that aren't relevant. But don't worry guys, despite ignoring all those games, we're going to have plenty of great games to talk about as we go along on this journey together. So let's get started where it all began for so many people, over on the PlayStation back in 1998. Before then, some action games were all about shooting everything on sight and dominating your enemies. But one clever guy who worked over at Konami took a very different approach, focusing less on run and gun gameplay and more on stealth, highlighting the phrase tactical espionage action on the crystal case. This is where our story begins. So let's take a look at Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation. If you owned a PlayStation 1 back in the day, chances are you were one of the many people that had a few staple games within your collection. Tekken 3, Crash Bandicoot 2, Final Fantasy 7, and a very hyped up game from Konami that was revealed at Tokyo Game Show 96 and teased even more at E3 of 1997. Metal Gear Solid finally released on the PlayStation in 1998, first in Japan in September and eventually in North America in October. European audiences got the game that following February in 1999. For those that don't already know, Metal Gear Solid was written, directed, and produced by Hideo Kojima. Prior to this, Kojima worked at Konami since 1986, producing many games for the MSX computer system in Japan. This included games like Penguin Adventure and Snatcher, two of Kojima's earliest titles. He would later go on to create Policenauts for the PC, a story-driven sci-fi game set in the mid-21st century. But most fans know about Kojima's early work on the MSX because of Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. These two games laid the groundwork for what later would become Metal Gear Solid. When it released on the PlayStation, Metal Gear Solid received a ton of critical acclaim. Many outlets scored the game in the high 90s and praised it for its in-game cinematic cutscenes and unique approach to stealth. The impact of Metal Gear Solid on the games industry was colossal, and in the years that followed, it was heralded as one of the most important video games ever made.
Is this the first time you ever pointed a gun at a person? Your hands are shaking. Can you shoot me, rookie?
Careful, I'm no rookie.
Liar. That nervous glance, that scared look in your eyes. They're rookie's eyes if I ever saw them. You've never shot a person, am I right?
You talk too much.
You haven't even taken the safety off, rookie.
I told you I'm no rookie!
Even today, you'll find many gamers that praise Kojima's work highly with Metal Gear Solid. The game was so well received that it shipped over 6 million copies worldwide, topping charts in Japan, Europe, and the United States. That's pretty insane for a game back in 1998 and 1999. So what made this game so awesome to begin with? I mean, what did it do so well that it got everybody's attention? Well, it was a combination of a few great things, including great direction, great writing, solid gameplay, and a few things that kept you alert. It's no secret that Metal Gear Solid gets a lot of praise for its story and characters, and rightfully so. one can easily recognize a lot of the characteristics the game borrows from various anime and pop culture movies, including some of the designs for its key players. Solid Snake himself is said to be heavily inspired by the likes of Kurt Russell's character, Snake Plissken, seen in Escape from New York. But that's not all. Artist and designer Yoji Shinkawa also stated in various interviews that Snake was modeled after the physique of Jean-Claude Van Damme and the facial features of Christopher Walken. Definitely a heck of a combination there. Anyway, the plot of Metal Gear Solid centers around the threat of nuclear war. A renegade military group known as Foxhound seizes a nuclear disposal facility and holds the world hostage with a super weapon known as Metal Gear Rex. They demand $1 billion in cash and the remains of a legendary soldier named Big Boss within 24 hours. Otherwise, they'll launch Metal Gear Rex and start firing nukes at various locations. The US government dispatches Solid Snake to infiltrate the Shadow Moses facility and neutralize Foxhound to prevent Metal Gear Rex from launching and causing an all-out nuclear war. The story gets a lot more complicated beyond that, but we're introduced to a ton of different characters that come into play, who in the years following the game's initial release became iconic. We have characters like Solid Snake, Colonel Campbell, Naomi Hunter, Mei Ling, Meryl Silverberg, Hal Emmerich, Revolver Ocelot, Psycho Mantis, Sniper Wolf, Vulcan Raven, Deep Throat, and Liquid Snake. Each have their own sub-stories and backgrounds that complement the larger narrative about war, duty, legacy, and an uncertain future.
These are some of the supercomputers. If you link these, you can test everything in a virtual environment. But it's all just theoretical.
So this exercise was designed to test the real thing.
What did our president do? If the terrorists launched that thing... Damn! Damn! I'm such a fool. It's all my fault.
So, a lot of the themes in Metal Gear Solid touch on many things that are relevant even today. The fear of technology being used in the wrong hands, doing what we can to ensure the survival of our world, and taking our next steps into the future at hand. The very strong anti-nuke messages in the game make their points very clear and insightful in many ways, without being too overbearing or obnoxious. This is something that's a perspective Kojima would actually continue to reinforce in future Metal Gear Solid games, all the way through to his final entry of the series. The conversations that Snake has with other characters, accompanied by real footage of nuclear test facilities, breaks through the fourth wall, as if Snake and company were talking directly to the player. But that's not the only way that Metal Gear Solid would break barriers, because its gameplay did so in very shocking ways that is still talked about even today. Action and drama are at the forefront of Metal Gear Solid, but the cornerstone of its gameplay lies in stealth. Like it says on the box, tactical espionage action. MGS was never about just shooting your enemies like an 80s action star, but about being smart and overcoming your odds in superior ways. And back in 1998, this spoke very loudly to the gaming community. You control Solid Snake and make your way through the different locations of Shadow Moses. Snake can move around and crawl to reach his objectives, allowing him to hide from soldiers that are patrolling the area. Aiding him is the Soliton radar, which can pinpoint the positions of enemies and key items to help Snake complete his mission. It's all about being sneaky and avoiding combat as much as you can. Getting to your objectives without being spotted is the most important part of this game, because if you get spotted by the enemy, it might be all over for you. As long as you're careful and use your head while roaming around, you should be fine. But if Snake does have to fight his way out of a jam, then his patented CQC fighting style is more than enough to take someone down. As the story progresses, Snake will encounter various members of Foxhound and have to fight them. Most of these boss fights involve getting into a good position and gunning them down, or even using explosives to defeat them. For example, the fight against Sniper Wolf requires you to outgun her at a long distance, which can be done if you have a sniper rifle on hand, or another weapon to even out the odds. Despite this, there are a few special cases that involve a bit more finesse. The most famous boss fight in the game, and arguably one of the best boss battles in video game history, is the fight against Psycho Mantis. This guy can read Snake's mind and avoid most of his attacks, but he also taunts you with his power, making for one of the best fourth wall breaking video game moments of all time.
Still don't believe me? Now I'll read more deeply into your soul. I can see into your mind. So, you like Suikoden? You have not said often. You are somewhat reckless.
But that's not all. In order to defeat Psycho Mantis, players need to insert the controller into port 2 on the PlayStation. This allows Snake to hurt Psycho Mantis and prevent him from reading Snake's moves. It's a super clever and shocking way of enhancing the interaction between the game and the player. To this day, very few other games have ever topped the impact that this boss fight had on people. It's this high level of creativity from Kojima that permeates throughout the entire game.
Press the circle button repeatedly to regain your strength. When you've had enough, press the select button to submit. When your life reaches 0, the game is over. There are no continues, my friend. Don't even think about using auto fire, or I'll know.
Over the years, people have discovered many more fantastic design choices and fourth wall breaking moments within Metal Gear Solid. We'd be here all day if we listed every single one of them. For many, this made the game a lot more interesting and deep. One of the more underrated aspects of MGS is how open most situations can be. The game surprisingly allows for multiple solutions to the same obstacles, including some boss fights. And while some situations require a specific way of getting over them, the majority of the game gives you so many options for everything else. Just like any other secret agent, sometimes you just have to adapt during the mission in order to get the job done. But there's one other thing that I really believe helped make Metal Gear Solid become the classic that it is today. Imagine for just a second that you're home alone, playing your favorite game in the comfort of your own room, when all of a sudden you randomly hear something that grabs your attention. And then you realize what you're reacting to is the phenomenal sound design. The soundtrack to Metal Gear Solid is amongst the most recognizable in gaming history. More than likely, you probably heard some of the tracks or sound clips from the game in some form, even if you've never played it. The music in the game was created within Konami by musical composers Kazuki Muraoka, Hiroyuki Togo, Takanari Ishiyama, Lee Jianmyung, and Maki Kitaoka. They did most of the music you hear in the background as you play. But that's not all. The iconic alert sound was created by Konami's sound team and has been an instantly recognizable trait that is still parodied and referenced today by many forms of media. Outside of the instrumentals that set the mood for nearly everything in the game, Metal Gear Solid also had a song created by composer and lyricist Rika Muranaka. The song is called The Best Is Yet to Come, and is sung in Irish by singer Iofi. You hear this song during the end credits, but it was also planned to be used as an instrumental earlier in the game during a very key scene involving Snake and Meryl. The song would later be heard again in various places, including a special scene in Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. But the song was also sampled by British metalcore band Bring Me the Horizon, who, funny enough, made a song that was called Shadow Moses, named after the island Snake goes to in the first game.
Just like with the genome soldiers, you can input all the genetic information, but that doesn't make them into the strongest soldiers. The most we can say about DNA is that it governs a person's potential strengths, potential destiny.
Personally for me, I have a very strong connection to the music of games, because I feel like it's one of the biggest aspects that helps bring everything together, at least from my experience playing. Luckily for me and for many other people, the music of Metal Gear Solid could stand out on its own alongside all the other superb aspects of the game, which finally brings me to the legacy of Metal Gear Solid years after its original release. Time has been actually really good to this game, with a few interesting footnotes that we've picked up along the way. Since its debut on the PlayStation in 1998, Metal Gear Solid has gotten a number of re-releases over the years. It was reissued multiple times throughout the 2000s in Japan, North America, and Europe, with many different greatest hits and special editions that go for a very high price these days. There was also a PC release of the game, which enabled mouse and keyboard support and USB joypad options. Unfortunately, for that version anyway, there was some content that was cut out of it, more specifically a few moments from the Psycho Mantis boss battle. Of course, there's also the Metal Gear Solid collections that came out in Japan, as well as the PSN downloadable version on the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Portable. The game was included later on the PlayStation Classic as one of the 20 PlayStation games for that retro console. Some people might not know this, but there was also an expanded version of Metal Gear Solid released on the PlayStation that was also the basis for the PC version. This was called Metal Gear Solid Integral and included more content than the original release, such as new outfits for Snake and Meryl, new codec conversations and frequencies, additional options for English and Japanese dubbing and subtitles, hidden music tracks, and even a first-person perspective mode. There's even more beyond that, but you get the idea. The big one that everyone remembers is the remake on the Nintendo GameCube made by Silicon Knights in 2004, titled Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. This version of the game has a lot of big changes, including the upgraded visuals from Metal Gear Solid 2 on the PlayStation 2. The visual overhaul and remap controls offered a very different experience, despite the setting and the story essentially being the same. While there was a lot of new content, such as new cutscenes and re-recorded dialogue with the original voice cast, all of the music was completely different. You didn't get any of the iconic themes you had from the original release. It was essentially a different game that many could argue was not as good as the original, but was still received pretty well.
I've lived here a long time, but Alaska has never looked more beautiful. The sky, the sea, the caribou, and most of all, you.
Metal Gear Solid has received countless awards from many different outlets over the years, usually making it onto everyone's best of list. The game helped spotlight a whole new aspect of the action genre, bringing stealth to the forefront and surprising many within the industry at that time. Looking back on it, Hideo Kojima once said in an interview with Jeff Keighley, quote, "Neither I nor anyone else expected Metal Gear Solid to sell at all. I didn't think at all of how to make this game sell well because I didn't expect it to sell. Luckily for him and for us, he was wrong, and we ended up getting one of the best-selling PlayStation games of all time." And there you have it, everyone, our first step on this incredible journey together into a legendary video game series that resonates with so many people, myself included. But don't worry, we're far from done. Like the song in the game says, the best is yet to come. I'll see you all again next time. Stay epic, everybody. Hey there. Yes, it's finally done. It's out there for the world to see now. I won't lie, everything worked out better than I expected. Might end up yielding better results than anticipated. Not entirely. They still have to wait a little longer. That way, while everyone's distracted, we can finally make our move on him. Indeed. I'll admit for a brief second I was worried, but if this keeps up, everything will go exactly as we laid out. You're right. I'll make sure it works out good. That way they get what they want, and you'll get what you want, Adonis. Exactly. Once all that's done, I can focus on everything else. Yes, I'm doing exactly what we discussed. No more waiting this time. I'm going after Hideo Kojima. Of course. I'll be ready, and I've got a good idea of who to start with. I think it's time me and Greg Miller finally had a little chat.